So on behalf of Clemson Extension and our school and community gardening program, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Readers to Eaters Food Literacy Summer Author Series, which is being sponsored today by South Carolina Farm to School. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our panel of speakers in order of appearance today. I don't like to leave speakers hanging in the wings. In order of appearance, we have Ben Cease, the program coordinator of the South Carolina Department of Education's Farm to School program. Then, of course, this is me, Amy Dabbs. Next, you'll hear from Emily Ellingberg, the Director of Educational Programs for the Because Project. Then you'll hear from Philip Lee, co-founder of Readers to Eaters, who is then going to introduce us to our amazing author and speaker, Jacqueline Briggs Martin. So we are so excited to have all of you here today. And I'm going to turn this over to Ben. Ben, you're muted. It's okay, we all do it.
Almost every time.
Every time.
No, I just want to say thank you for everybody taking the time to join us today. We have a great list of speakers, and without further ado, I just want to welcome everybody and tell you a little bit about South Carolina Farm to School. So we're really proud to sponsor this year's Readers to Eaters Food Literacy Summer Author Series, and very excited to welcome our speakers today. This type of program directly supports our mission to facilitate communication and education opportunities for farmers, distributors, and schools throughout South Carolina to support healthy, locally produced food. Food literacy is the understanding of how our food choices impact our health, environment, and the economy, which are built into our core elements of programming. These core elements include procurement of local foods to be served in school meals, promoting educational activities related to agriculture, food, health, and nutrition, and creating hands-on experiential learning through school gardening. By enhancing food purchasing and education practices at schools and education sites, children and their families are empowered to make informed food choices. This helps strengthen the local economy while also contributing to vibrant communities. South Carolina Farm to School supports these core elements through a variety of initiatives and continues to look for ways to help facilitate these and other important connections. We recognize the significance of food literacy and very pleased to sponsor this summer author series that will help students connect to healthy food through literature. Amy, thank you again for all your hard work, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ben. So we really appreciate Ben and the South Carolina Farm to School program for all their critical work. And now I would like to introduce you to Emily Ellingberg. She's the Director of Educational Programs for the Because Project, a South Carolina-based international nonprofit that seeks to inspire the next generation of environmental stewards while protecting our planet's precious pollinators. And in case you're wondering, she's my sister. There's no denying it. We have to say it.
Can't unsee it in the mannerisms and the voice. So I won't take up too much time, but I did want to just share some things with you about us, what we do at the Because Project. Thank you, Amy, for asking me to be here, not only as your sister, but as a representative for honeybees, and to meet all these amazing people who I know, through this network of people that are working towards the food literacy aspect and pollinators, and just how important it is to all of us. So at the Because Project, we really work hard to connect kids back to nature through the magic of the honeybee, a miraculous animal that inspires me and inspires hopefully a lot of you. Some of the things that we do at the Because is we do bee grants, and those are live bee grants to schools, libraries, community centers. We also started doing renewal grants to support those community centers, libraries that already have one of our grants. As you know, the equipment wears out. You might need to get a new hive up and running. So we help support through our B grants and through renewal grants. Oh. All right. But we also provide curriculum to anyone, and that curriculum is free. It is on our website, but we also have that listed in something called an OER Commons. I'll tell you a little about that. And really, it's open to anyone that wants to do pollinator education. And there are no live bees required. So if you already have one of our hives, that's awesome. You can use what we have. We've also provided a lot of live bee footage so that you don't have to have a hive to be successful with this. We have virtual field trips, which, in the time of COVID, we needed to have something that we could offer to our teachers, but that can still, go take us further than just what we're able to travel to. And in one of those virtual field trips, we do a farm to table with our partners at Ag in the Classroom here in South Carolina to follow collards from the farm right to a table here in Charleston, South Carolina. We have a lot of science labs buried within a lot of different lessons and curriculums. We do citizen science project suggestions, things that you and your students can do. We have a full 6-week bee unit from the Bee Cause Project that, again, live bees or no live bees, you can be successful with that. And we also have a really unique digital beehive that you can download and watch with your students that comes with lessons. That's a really unique project, something completely new. Part of it is live bee footage where you get to see them crawling in and out of the observation hive. And then part of it are little driven lessons. And like I said, there's a lesson plan that goes with that. And probably my favorite part, near and dear to me, I was an 18-year Montessori teacher and loved teaching book club. So that's where I met Philip at Readers to Eaters. We have lots of Readers to Eaters titles in our book club lessons. There are 10 currently, and we're adding on because standards do drive the education at times. They are next gen science and Common Core standards based. I tried to make sure that everything ranged in ability of reading level from little kids that are going to get these great read alouds all the way up through kids who can read chapter books, level of interest, so nonfiction, fiction, and we also have different genre, poetry, all types of things. And within those lessons, experiments are embedded, discussion questions, research projects, and so much more. And one of our personal favorites by Jacqueline is Farmer Will Allen. Great book if you've never read it. Check it out. And like I mentioned before, we also have something called an OER Commons group. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. That's an open educational resource, which means that you can get a free account. Everything within there is downloadable, printable, shareable, savable, and organized by my 18-year teacher brain. So I hope you find that beneficial. It's folders. I mean, what educator doesn't love a folder? And I've tried to kind of take you through many steps of how you can access this information. And what we have in there is way more than one school year. So if you're in education or you're promoting this to someone in education, this is a lot of information. And you can access OER Commons by just going to OER Commons and looking up the Bee Cause Project. Or if you'd like, you can email me directly at educator@thebeecause.org, and I can send you an invitation, which is also a really easy thing for me to do. And then we were talking before, this is something I just wanted to take a second and brag on. We've just expanded to do a new grant with libraries. This is Libraries Need Bees Too. With this grant that was sponsored by Whole Foods Market, we delivered honeybee boxes that were turned into pollinator planting garden boxes. And really the idea is just that when you walk into a library, you're promoting pollinators, and libraries need bees too. So each of the libraries received those 10 books with the lesson plans. They received the mason bee habitat, pollinator box signage, and then we wanted to spread it out. So it's not just there at the library. These libraries are also encouraged to teach the Be a Friend to Pollinator lesson and then gift out 3 kits to people in their community how they see fit. So it's a new thing for us and we're excited about it and hope that more people will want to sponsor that and we can spread the love to all the libraries too. And are just in case you're curious or want to spread the love about our grant cycle, it opens in September. You can always sign up for our newsletter to get information. We have an info that you can email, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook for all the fun things that we do and all the free education that we have. And we'd love to put some more beehives out there in the world. We have 550 international right now, so always looking to continue to spread the bee love. And I've spoken quite a bit about my friend Philip Lee. I would love to introduce and turn the floor over to him.
Well, before you do, Emily, I just want to say I dropped in the chat over here. If anybody's interested, or if anybody missed the email or you registered late, there's a link to the handouts for today. There's a whole link there that will take you out to MailChimp, and you can get Emily's information. You can sign up for that OER she mentioned and learn about all the speakers and all the programs today. And if you have questions for Emily, you can also drop them in the chat. So thank you so much, Emily. And
Absolutely.
Philip Lee, Readers to Eaters, publishes books that give us a fresh and fun perspective on what we eat and how we eat it. And it's all done through great stories, beautiful writing, and a deep appreciation of food cultures. So we cannot wait to hear from you, and we welcome you all the way from the West Coast today.
Hello. Thank you, Amy. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for really hosting this event and partnering with Readers to Eaters, the whole food literacy author summer series. It's really great. I'm so thrilled to be here. Like Amy mentioned, so I started Readers to Eaters with my wife, Junjo Lee. Now we're based in San Francisco. We started in Seattle, and our company, we're the only company with a specific focus to promote food literacy, by publishing stories about our diverse food cultures. So what do? We tell stories about food, basically. Like our books may have information about cooking and nutrition, but what we really love is telling stories about people who grow it, people who cook it, and people who provide the food that we eat every day. And what's the common factor among all these stories is they're always stories about people, adults and children, who work to make a better community through food. So one thing we're particularly also very excited about is to tell to get new ways about how we think about food, our relationship with food, especially for kids. The idea is that good food, of course, what it means to your body, but we also remind kids of what good food can mean to your communities, and how kids can be change agent by growing food, by making smart food choices, that they can make a difference, in our society by being mindful and being participating in our local food system. So that kind of describes what we do in terms of the books that we publish. But we also, Readers to Eaters, also kind of the word Readers to Eaters also describes kind of how we do our partnerships with our communities. So we work with a lot of reader organizations, like the libraries, as well as eater organizations, such as farmers markets, to also kind of combine to connect their work. So, like many of you know, libraries now are becoming community food hubs. They are, of course, certainly starting with books about food, but they are also hosting a lot of community gardens. They're doing seed exchange. Some of them are actually lending gardening tools and cooking supplies. My local library here, you can actually check out an Instapot. You can actually check out toasters and all kinds of machines to make food. And so, but yet they have not participated in part of the local food system. So we, as a publisher, end up introducing to the local farm to school network, doing procurement, and more importantly, libraries now are actually feeding kids during many of the summer meal programs. They are actually providing food to children, and not just some, but tens of thousands of kids. And so we start kind of connecting them with local farm to school programs to procure some of the food that they use. And likewise, we also go to food organizations, like a farmers market and the USDA WIC programs or USDA SNAP Ed program, because their mission is to promote nutrition education, even at the farmers market, yet they have not always used a book before as part of that tool. They do a lot of cooking classes. So now with our books, they've been able to not just promote nutrition education, but promote reading at the same time. So they become part of the summer reading program in many cases. And it's been really great, to create these partnerships and really connecting, good reads and good eats, in new ways. And, and I hope you all could think about part of that as programming, but even in terms of fundings and connections and really building the community together. And that's especially we saw more so under the past year with the COVID, where traditional walls and silos have really come down, and everybody is looking for, like certainly libraries are looking to have more programming outside their traditional walls, and finding new partnerships. So it's been really exciting to think about how we can use food as a way to connect all these different, community organizations. So with our books, again, one particular good example about what our books are about is our Food Hero series, written by Jacqueline Briggs Martin. And these are and what's the beauty of that is these are people that Jacqueline managed to feature, not just because they're famous household names in food. They're not, necessarily, TV stars, but they are food pioneers, and to me, food visionaries. They see what other people can't see, and they found new ways, and they're always dedicated to making change in the communities, again, and the world through food, and almost always to find a better place, starting with kids. That's so as a publisher, when Jacqueline comes to us with these ideas about, well, what do you think about this person? What do you think about that person? It's always kind of interesting. It's like, wow, they are always focusing on how to help young people through food. Sometimes let's hope they grow up to become gardeners, but sometimes they grow up to be activists, community activists through gardening. And I don't mean activists in a necessarily political way, but just finding new ways to make change into society, and that's what's built. So the beauty of this whole Food Hero series. And Emily mentioned, one of her books that she likes, and one of my also personal favorite books is Farmer Will Allen and the Growing Table. The whole Food Hero series have won many awards, over the years, but something like the Farmer Will Allen, but it's a particular fun project, is back in 2015, it was used to set the Guinness World Record to get the most kids to read the same book around the world in a 24-hour cycle. So I think we had something like 50 countries spanning over 17 time zones, started in Asia. And I actually was sitting next to the recorder, the official Guinness World Record recorder, and he was checking, and we tried to get over 300,000 kids to read Farmer Will Allen around the world in 24 hours. And it was really exciting. We had people, it was like back then when I think there was a disaster in Haiti. We had Red Cross carrying the books and food to Haiti and then read to the kids. We actually, because the programs actually started in Houston, we got the Johnson Space Center to try to get the astronauts to read it in space. So it would be a really global reading. So it's just a really fun way and to again engage the world. And again, the reason why they chose this book is about how one person can make a difference, and kids can do it too. So again, it's much to Jacqueline's credit for having that vision, creating these wonderful books. And so I hope you read more about Jacqueline's book. In addition to the Food Hero series, she has written 22 books, I believe, over the years, including the 1999 Caldecott winner, Snowflake Bentley. So wonderful book, highly recommend it. And so it's a pleasure to introduce Jacqueline here. So I will pass on. And again, thank you all for having us here. And you can read more about our books at readertoeaters.com. And I just put the link on the chat. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Philip. And thank you, Amy, for inviting me. Thanks to this Clemson program. Thanks, Emily, for the good news about honeybees. And thank you all for taking some time today to be here with us. It is always fun for me to talk about writing and stories and making books. But it is especially fun to be part of a program sponsored by the Extension Service. I have a few slides, and I am now going to share my screen. I grew up on a farm in Maine. Well, we always have a little trouble getting them to share. Here we go. This is where I grew up, on this farm. I was a 4-H member from age 10 until I left home for college. Our 4-H agent was one of my favorite people. I thought of him like a friendly uncle. And the extension agent came to our farm regularly. He was also in my childhood pantheon of warm, intelligent, and friendly people. I welcomed his visits. So I carry with me good vibes toward people who are in the extension service, even now, wherever they are. And I have to share with you one 4-H experience. My older brother Steve and I took show cattle around to the fairs in Maine and even to the big New England fair, like a state fair would be in Iowa, but New England is small states, and so it was in Massachusetts, Eastern States Exposition. We went as part of the 4-H delegation. And one year at this fair, one of the entertainers was Roy Rogers, famous cowboy of that time. And someone wanted to do a photo op of 4-Hers with Roy Rogers. So they chose me and my brother to be part of that photo op. And there we are, there on the ends, 2 kids with dairy animals and 2 kids with the white shirts and ties with beef animals standing with Roy Rogers. That was quite something, but it was not my best 4-H experience. The best part, I think, was all that I learned in those years. I took dairy animals and sewing, furniture refinishing. I learned so much, and I met so many people. So thank you, Extension. Thank you, 4-H. I titled our time together today, Digging for Story, because I think the stories that we want to tell are connected to where we come from. Often to find our stories, we have to dig back into our childhood memories. More often, though, our childhood experiences shape who we are and what we care about. And as I look at the stories I have written, most of them have their roots in my childhood on the dairy farm. So I want to tell you a bit about it. As I said, this is the farm. My 5 brothers and sisters, my parents, and a great-great uncle lived on the 2nd floor of this farmhouse. My grandparents lived downstairs. We were in the upstairs. 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 to a bedroom. We did not have a lot of space in that apartment. So I especially loved being outside, walking down the lanes of the farm or in the nearby woods. I think those walks were the beginning of my interest in nature and the environment. I wanted to share with you a photo of my dad holding one of our Holstein cows, River Flat, Blanche, Wisconsin. From my earliest years, I was aware of the sounds of words, and I loved the name River Flat, Blanche, Wisconsin. When I eventually wrote a book with a cow in it, the cow was named Blanche, Wisconsin. I still love the way it sounds. Holstein cows are mostly mild-mannered, mellow. Maybe not as mellow as Blanche, Wisconsin in the book, but pretty mellow. The same cannot be said for Holstein bulls. They are fierce and they are mean. Once, one of my dad's bulls got loose. The hired men had to take shelter under a hay wagon. There were stories told at our kitchen table of farmers being gored by Holstein bulls. I was terrified of the bulls on our farm. As a young child, I worried that they were going to get out, come up the back stairs to our apartment, and wreak havoc. I worried about that so much that I couldn't sleep at night. I had to read a book to calm myself down and take my mind off of that worry. Because our cows had to be milked night and morning. We never took vacations. We lived only 45 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. As a child, I thought we lived 300 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. We never went there because we had to be home night and morning. Our only holidays were food holidays. Fortunately for us, my mom was a wonderful cook. And when strawberry season came around, we had strawberry shortcake with her wonderful biscuits and whipped cream, thanks to the cows. That was a holiday. When garden peas were ready, we had peas and new potatoes with butter and cream, thanks to the cows. That was a holiday too. Food was so important to my family that even now, whenever a family member takes a trip and returns, someone is sure to ask, "What did you have good to eat?" Food was our language of love. My brothers worked on the farm, in the fields, and in the barn. My two sisters and I worked in the garden, helped make the meals, wash the dishes, fold the clothes. We played kick the can in the dooryard, croquet on the lawn, went to 4-H meetings, and we grew up. After college, I married. We had 2 children, and we lived in a rented house on a pig farm in Iowa, next to the college town where my husband taught in the English department. While he was at work all day, Sarah and Justin and I read books, played, explored the outdoors. The books were so important to us that I decided I wanted to write books for kids. I wrote some very bad books for children. In fact, I was keeping them, all these bad manuscripts, stored in a box in the basement. And I went down one day to the basement and I opened one of the boxes and there was a dead mouse on the top of the manuscripts. And I thought, oh my God, if this manuscript is so bad it killed a mouse, I have got to get rid of it. So the boxes are no longer there. And maybe we have more mice in our basement now, I'm not sure. But anyway, I wrote all those bad stories. And then when Justin was 4 years old, I got an idea for a story from him. When he was 4 years old, he developed a fear of the wind. He thought it was going to blow him away, lift him into a tree. I think now maybe he watched The Wizard of Oz at too young an age, and that gave him this fear of the wind. In any case, one day he said to me, "Mom, I'm not going to get out of bed today. If I do, the wind will blow me away." And he didn't get out of bed. He stayed in bed. I know that a good parent would have said, "What can I do to help my child get over this fear of the wind?" I said, "I wonder if I can make a story out of this." And I think one reason that I wanted to make a story out of it is I understood paralyzing fear because I had been so afraid of those bulls on our farm. I understood not being able to get out of bed. And I knew that kids have those fears. And I wanted to write about it. So I worked on it. I called the character Busy Bones because that's what we called Justin at that time. I turned him into a mouse. I took away the parents and gave him an uncle, Uncle Ezra, and they lived in a work shoe. And that was my first book. But you can see how it ties back to my childhood, fear to fear. Also, when Justin and Sarah were 4 and 7, they received a magazine once a month in the mail called Cricket Magazine. It's still published, and it's a wonderful magazine for kids. It has stories, fictional stories for kids. It has nonfiction, craft ideas, poems. It's really a lovely magazine that respects the intellects of children. In that year, 1979, Cricket Magazine published an article on a man people called Snowflake Bentley. I want to talk a little bit about this book, even though its focus is not food, but it's about the wonder of the world And I think gardening and food and the wonder of the world all kind of fit in the same category, same pantheon of things to be interested in. So we read this article on Snowflake Bentley, and we learned that he took over 5,000 pictures of snow crystals in his lifetime. We learned that his neighbors laughed at him. We learned that he never actually made a profit with his snowflake pictures. He spent more money on supplies than he ever was paid for his photographs. He did it because it was his passion. And because of my farm childhood, I knew Bentley's neighborhood. I knew the smell of his barn, the sweet smell of the hay they had to gather in the summertime. And I never forgot him from this article. Every winter when it snowed in Iowa, I would say to Sarah and Justin and anybody who would listen, wouldn't Snowflake Bentley love this day? He became for our family like a great uncle, too far away to see, but always on our minds, especially in the winter time. So every winter, I would mention him. Justin and Sarah went to elementary school, middle school, high school, graduated, went to college. Every winter, wouldn't Snowflake Bentley love this day? One year they came home for Christmas break from college. It was snowing on Christmas morning, so we went out for a walk. And I said, as I always did, wouldn't Snowflake Bentley love this day? And they said, Mom, why don't you write about Snowflake Bentley? I had written a few books by that time. And I had not written any nonfiction and no biographies, but I was kind of edging toward nonfiction with back matter and sidebars and things like that. And so I thought, yeah, why don't I write about Snowflake Bentley? I should do that. After they went back to their apartments and schools, I began to research. I went to the library and I found in the files articles that Wilson Bentley had written. I read every one of those articles that I could find. I found some interviews that I could access on interlibrary loan, and I read those. Someone had written a book about Snowflake Bentley for elementary school children, the only biography there was. I found that too. I even went to Vermont. I wanted to stand where Snowflake Bentley had stood. He died in 1933, long before I was born, but his house was still there. His dooryard was still there. I wanted to stand on the ground that he had stood on when he took his pictures. So I went to his house, and the person who lived there was kind enough to show me inside. If you look up here on this triangle, you can see one wooden snowflake. When Bentley lived there, there were wooden snowflakes all along the porch roof. When he was alive, Wilson and his mother and father lived in this part of the house. Charlie and Charlie's family lived in this part of the house. And there was a matching large section over here where you can't see. So Charlie had room enough for his 8 children and himself and his wife. When I came back to Iowa, I felt ready to tell this story. And I wanted to tell it in a way that would make Snowflake Bentley as memorable to readers as he was to me. I thought, I will show the whole neighborhood. So I had some neighbors laughing at what he was doing, and his mother making pancakes on a snowy morning, and kids out sledding on a snowy morning. It was a panorama, a verbal panorama. But I was pleased with it. And I sent it off to a publisher thinking, this is going to be great. They're going to love it. A few months later, she wrote back and said, it's not quite working. I thought, she just doesn't get it. I'll send it somewhere else. So I did. And a few months later, she wrote back and said, I think there's a story here, but I can't find it with all these points of view and all of these speakers. So I wrote it again. And this time I thought, I will tell the story as if I were Wilson Bentley's niece. Of those 8 children, one of them loved his snowflake pictures, and I pretended I was her. A couple months later, I sent off this revision. A couple months later, I heard back, not quite. So I thought, I don't want to write a story that's not quite there. I will do it again. And this time I thought, I'm not going to make anything up. I'm just going to tell it the way it happened. In the days when farmers worked with ox and sled and cut the dark with lantern light, there lived a boy who loved snow more than anything else in the world. And that is how I got to the book. Before I leave Snowflake Bentley, there is the wonder factor, and I want to show you some of his photographs. In the summertime, he loved taking pictures of spider webs, and he would coat the top of a milk bucket with pitch and put that next to a spider web so the spider web would stick on top of the milk bucket, and he would take the picture. He thought they looked like jewels, and I have to agree with him. One time, he tied a grasshopper to a flower because he wanted to take a photograph of the drops of dew on the grasshopper's legs and the grasshopper's antennae. In the morning, he cut the string, and the grasshopper hopped away. He loved his snowflake pictures. And the ones he especially loved were the ones that had pictures within them. He did not put those pictures there. He did not scrape that out to show those birds or the star or the flowers. That is the way the moisture froze inside those crystals. And it really is quite wondrous that it froze in the shape of 6 birds. I always tell students that it's like the snowflakes contain secrets, and Wilson Bentley had the secret decoder so that we could see them. This one too. Even now, people use his designs for jewelry or for clothing, for fabrics, because they're just so amazing. And he scraped away all of the emulsion around the snow crystals so that the snow crystals would stand out better. Imagine the dedication, imagine the passion for sharing snow crystals. Robert Olin Butler has said that writing fiction involves the art of human yearning. I believe that writing nonfiction involves the art of human sharing. When I write a book about a person, it is because I want to share their stories with others. I want to say, look, did you know such a person existed in our real world? Look what they did. 5,000 pictures of snowflakes. Look what they are doing now. And that brings me to Farmer Will Allen. I told you that I worked in the garden when I was a child. I thought our garden was a truck farm when I was a child. The rows seemed so long. My sisters and I especially hated picking peas because you have to bend over and you have to find the peas. We really hated it. My little garden is not a truck farm, but I love it. I especially love watching climbing beans. I don't know why, but there's something about watching them climb up the stakes that just thrills me every season. I go out 2 or 3 times a day to see how much movement they have made. So when I was looking for a story, I thought, I want to write about farming and gardening. And it occurred to me that we don't hear very much about urban farms. So I thought, I would like to write about urban farms. At first, I thought I would write about farms all over the country. And then I decided, no, I will just pick one. I happened upon Will Allen, who had Growing Power Farm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right in our time zone. We went there. It's only about 5 hours from where I live. My husband and I went there, and I loved it. I took a lot of pictures. Here it is, right on West Silver Spring Drive in Milwaukee, right on a divided highway where city buses go back and forth every day. There's the sign and all the beautiful kale. Inside, you can see how Will Allen makes the most of every inch of space, or made the most of every inch of space. Lettuce everywhere, lettuce in buckets, lettuce on the floor, lettuce on shelves. He constructed additional greenhouses so he could grow more lettuce. Silver Spring Drive is in a food desert in Milwaukee. He wanted to grow food for the people who only could walk to convenience stores, who could not find fresh lettuce within walking distance of their homes. So he added these greenhouses. He filled buckets with lettuce and kale and other good greens. And he supplied restaurants. He also figured out that if he had fish ponds, he could filter the water through the greens. That would clean the water, but it would fertilize the greens. So nothing was lost, nothing was wasted. And the logs that you see hanging down there are inoculated with mushroom spores. So every inch of space that he could use, he did to provide food for the neighbors and for the restaurants. And you can see these buckets over here of compost that are going to be planted with something. He also had goats. I love these goats in the city. They just are like, oh, well, really, we're goats in the city. And he had chickens. I did not take a photo of chickens. And huge mounds of compost all over the place. People came to his farm for workshops on how to use red wiggler worms to make compost. He traveled around the country telling people how to have urban farms. I read everything that I could find on Will Allen, and there was a lot. He received a MacArthur Genius Grant for his work at Growing Power Farm. He did many interviews. I read transcriptions. Some interviews were available on YouTube. I watched those. It was like I was doing the interviewing. I watched them multiple times. I took notes on them. A pattern emerged as I was working on the story. Will Allen started with one ambition: to provide healthy, delicious vegetables for people in that food desert. Along the way, he added goals: to provide useful and satisfying jobs for the youth in that area, to teach them how to do a job, and to teach others how to build urban farms. The table for those he wanted to feed grew larger and larger as time went on. And that is where the title comes from: Farmer Will Allen and the Growing Table. Farmer Will Allen's growing table is still growing. Even though Growing Power Farm is no longer in Milwaukee, the influence of his work continues to be felt all over the country. We have an urban farm right next to me in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Cultivate Hope Urban Farm. The folks in Cedar Rapids learned how to do urban farms by visiting Growing Power Farm. The seeds that Will Allen planted are still growing in Chicago, in Detroit, all over the world. Will Allen revolutionized how people do urban farms. I also wanted to tell the story of Alice Waters because she is a quiet revolutionary. She had been transformed by her college sophomore year in Paris. She loved how the French spent time preparing their food, choosing their food. They made decisions about how they would organize their day based on food. She loved that, and she wanted to give others the experience of the unalloyed joy of delicious food. Her restaurant changed the way that restaurants prepare and present food. She was revolutionary because she believed, and she said, good food grown in healthy soil is enough. We don't have to do complicated preparations. A ripe peach grown in good soil can be an exquisite eating experience. She was relentless in her search for the best tasting food. She said, "I just never worried if I got paid or had enough sleep or any kind of normal life. Nothing else mattered except finding food that these people in the dining room would love. And that was it. It took all of my time," she said. "I had to find these ingredients. I drove to Big Sur and picked up live trout." She also said, "I was there at the restaurant from early in the morning until late at night. We never had time off. You have to have pleasure in your work." Here's what I wrote in the book about her search. Alice worked day and night finding just the right food. She drove to fish and poultry markets in Chinatown, so often that her car began to smell like a fish wagon, and no one wanted to ride with her. Alice and her friends picked wild fennel beside railroad tracks, knocked on strangers' doors and asked to pick mulberries from their trees. Imagine that, knocking on strangers' doors saying, "Can we pick the mulberries from that tree in your backyard?" I love that. She also planted lettuce in her own yard. She walked the fields with farmers, tasting just picked carrots or radishes, sometimes even a bit of soil. If she had only brought the local food, the importance of local food, the importance of flavor, that philosophy into the world, Alice Waters would have changed the way we understand food. Thanks to her, we value flavorful food, and her philosophy is actually very inclusive. A humble radish can be a taste experience if it's grown in good soil, served fresh, sliced with salt. Green beans fresh do not need more than butter and salt to be wonderful. As my family knew all those years ago, fresh garden peas and new potatoes are gourmet without even trying. Alice says in her new book, We Are What We Eat, we started putting growers and suppliers' names on the menus in order to give a public face to the generally invisible network of agriculture behind the restaurant. And you can see here on this menu, River Dog Farm Chicken, not just any old chicken, but River Dog Farm Chicken. Spicy Becker Lane pork sausages. In Iowa near me, it's not Becker Lane pork sausages, it's Pavelka Point Farm pork sausages. Because, thanks to Alice Waters, restaurants everywhere from Cedar Rapids, Iowa to Charleston, to Portland, Maine, to Portland, Oregon, now list the names of the farms that supply their kitchens. We now realize the connection between the farm and the food that we eat. And that is so important. We now give equal weight to the grower and the cook, and we are grateful to them both. Alice Waters is saying with her work and with her writing, everyone deserves these taste experiences. Will Allen said the same thing. We all deserve the best food, especially kids. And that is why Alice did the other thing that she is so well known for and that she spends so much time working on now. She started the Edible Schoolyard. There are now 5,000 edible schoolyard gardens in the United States and 800 edible schoolyard gardens around the world. I wish this map were bigger, but those colored circles will show you where they are around the world. And if you go to edibleschoolyard.com, .org, which is on your handout, you can see how many are in the US and where they are in the US. And even schools that aren't part of the Edible Schoolyard program often have gardens. Kids all over the country and the world are learning science, math, and history through seeds and gardening. Science, math, history and literature through cooking what they grow. Talk about revolution. It was so much fun for me to tell her story that when the book came out and we had our book party, we had it at the first edible schoolyard in Berkeley, California. And in this picture, you see Philip and June Jolie, founders of Readers to Eaters. You also see Catherine Pryor, Sylvia Spinach, who will be speaking with you in August, and me, and Cynthia Lair, who wrote How to Feed Your Young Athlete. And of course, here is Alice Waters at the Edible Schoolyard. Roy Choi was a revolutionary too. He made delicious, healthy food and served it out of a truck. He changed the way that people think about food trucks. Roy Choi was born in Korea and moved to Los Angeles with his family when he was 2 years old. As a kid, he loved exploring the streets of Los Angeles while his parents were busy earning a living. But he never quite felt like he belonged. As a young adult, he tried several things and failed. Finally, he found cooking. Even then, though, he lost his top-notch job in the recession of 2008. I was drawn to his story, to his failures and his persistence, his creative, generous vision to feed the people who live on the streets of LA, and his observation that his street truck food brought people from different cultures together. They chatted with each other as they stood in line waiting for their Korean taco. But Roy Choi came from Korea. He lived in a city. I grew up on a farm that had been in my family for 7 generations. What was my connection to Roy Choi? My mom. I told you that our language of love was food. Roy Choi's mother was a wonderful cook. She was such a good cook that she sold kimchi out of the trunk of her car. She was such a good cook that she had a restaurant in LA for a while. And food was her language of love. When Roy was little, she fed him with her hands. She made the best food she could, and she fed him with her hands. When Roy was a young man, trying and failing, after those failures, he would go home, and his mother would nourish him with food she made with love. Our mothers knew the same vocabulary. Food is love. And that, I thought, was my connection to Roy Choi. But still, I didn't think I could tell his story. I grew up on a farm in Maine, as I have told you several times, not on the streets of LA. I was not new to the culture of the United States. I thought, there's going to be a piece of this story that I can't tell. But I knew June Jolie by this time, and I knew that June had come from Korea to this country as a toddler. I knew that she had experiences similar to Roy's. She was laughed at for the food she ate. She felt like an outsider to the main culture of the US. I hoped that June would help me tell this story. I asked her if she would collaborate with me, and she said yes. My good fortune, our good fortune. We had such a wonderful time working on that story, and we have continued to collaborate. I learned through that experience of working with June that collaboration is a wonderful way to tell stories. So I want to go back to something that I said. I want to finish with something that I said earlier. Nonfiction is the art of human sharing. I want to share with all readers the stories of these real individuals who have passionate interests, sometimes interests in food, growing food, serving food. These interests can change the ways that we of all ages, access food, think about food, eat food. It can change the ways we nourish our bodies and our spirits, can change our lives. Thank you so much. I would love to answer questions. If anybody has any questions, that will be my pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Well, I would just love to say, Jackie, that you are welcome to come to the South at any time. Food is also our love language, and we would love to give you some of that love language here, especially in Charleston.
That would be my pleasure.
Come on down.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, we're a small enough group now. Anybody that wants to unmute and ask a question of Jacqueline, now's your chance.
Jacqueline, I wondered what age range that you're thinking of when you're writing these stories. What is it? How is it fairly broad? It seems like they're kind of universal stories.
Yeah. I remember reading to my children when they were young, as I showed you. And there were some books that I loved to read. I could read them forever. There were some books that I really wished I could bury in the backyard and never see them again. And I never wanted to write one of those bury in the backyard books. So I try to think about the range of the audience, the parents and the kids. And most of my books, not most of them, but most of my nonfiction books have some additional information. In Alice Waters, you might have noticed those little circles with additional information. In Snowflake Bentley, we had the sidebars. In Roy Choi, we had little, look like Post-it notes tacked onto the pages with additional information. And I think that makes the books accessible to a wider range of kids. If I know that sometimes preschool teachers will read the books without sharing that additional information, and teachers of 4th graders, 5th graders will read the books and share that information. It's often science information, so it makes the books accessible to an older range of kids. Plus, I actually believe, being a picture book writer, that picture books are good for all ages, that we don't leave them behind as we go to chapter books and older books. We bring them with us. And I never forget a quote from C.S. Lewis that I read years ago when I was writing mostly bad picture books. I don't want to say that I don't write bad picture books now that go down to my basement and kill mice. I still do, but I sometimes write good picture books too. C.S. Lewis said, I loved lemonade when I was a child. I still love lemonade, but I've added other drinks to my repertoire. And I feel like that's the way it is with picture books, that we can love the language and the illustrations of a picture book no matter how old we are. We just read other things too.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I wondered if maybe someone would like to know if I had written a bee book, because we had that wonderful presentation by Emily. And it turns out that I have. So I will just show you that. I love collaboration with June Jo so much that when my friends Liza Ketchum and Phyllis Root were talking about writing together, I said, oh, count me in. I would love to do that. And we wrote a book about bumblebees called Begin with the Bee. There's Liza and Phyllis and the illustrator Claudia McGeehee, who has a studio cat. Any other questions about research or writing or anything? Food.
Well, just a comment, not a question. I love to hear the stories behind the story. I did not know that these were real people that you had written about. So it's wonderful to have a background to the stories behind the stories, because now when I share them with children, I share them through Ag in the Classroom books. And now I can tell them these are real people. So thank you.
Thank you. I love writing about real people. I think it's a contract with the reader to say, look at this wonderful world we live in. Look at these people who live here and are doing these things. And they're not pop stars. They're not people on the cover of People magazine. They're just kind of quietly doing their thing. And so many times I think kids think, oh, I want to be famous when I grow up, because really, what do they know? They know people who are famous. And I want them to know there are people doing amazing things that they have never heard of.
Jackie, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Is there a book or topic you want to write about but haven't yet? And if so, what is it? And that's from Chase. She is an extension agent here at Clemson with me.
Uh-huh. Well, I know there have been a lot of books written about turtles, but I love turtles, and I would like to write a book about turtles at some point. I don't know. I so love gardening. I feel like there might be some other gardening books that I would want to write, just because it's such a passion of mine. I'm not sure. I haven't kind of focused in on any particular gardening book, but I do really love gardening. And it doesn't have to be a big garden. My gardens, you could hop from one end of my gardens to the other practically, but I love them.
Does that make you a pollinator gardener or a food gardener?
I do have some pollinator plants, but I also grow tomatoes and beans and Swiss chard. We have a number of pollinator plants in our yard, and I'm hoping to add to that this summer.
We have another question from Elijah. How do you find the people you write about?
That's a really good question. I think if you love writing, you have this special radar that's constantly looking for stories and constantly thinking, like when your son is afraid of the wind, could I make a story out of this? I told you how I found Snowflake Bentley. Alice Waters, I knew of, I think, because I like reading about food, and I had read about Chez Panisse, and I thought that she actually had been revolutionary. I think I found Will Allen when I was beginning to research urban farms. I read about an urban farm in the Red Hook area in Brooklyn, and I read about Growing Power Farm in Wisconsin, and there was one in San Francisco. And when I decided to settle on one farm, I chose Will Allen partly because he's amazing, and he really did. It was like the Johnny Appleseed of composting, but also because Milwaukee is close and I could go and see it. But I'm always looking for stories in the newspaper, in magazines.
Elijah suggests maybe writing about Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, or maybe a picture book about Elliot Coleman.
Elliot Coleman, who gardens 4 seasons in Maine. Mm-hmm. All during the winter he gardens. That's a great idea.
And then Chase had a follow-up question. Basically, she wants to know if you ever thought about sort of working backward from a finished product, like, something that's cooked from the garden, or, in a story form, the people or the animals that are the subject. I'm kind of interpreting what she said, but maybe make a story about the end product and work your way back is her question. Have you ever considered doing that?
I haven't considered it, but I think it's a great idea. Maybe start with tomato sauce for pizza, start with pizza sauce and go back to planting the tomato. Also, I'm just going to throw, I think that's a wonderful idea. If anybody else gets to it before I do it.
Do it.
I'll look for it. But I do think it's a really good idea.
Exactly. Well, you guys, this is so fun. I mean, Jackie and I got on the phone the first time I called her to ask her about this, and we talked. I mean, I felt like I kept her on the phone for hours, which, if you know me, is not a hard thing for me to do, but we definitely hit it off, and we talked a lot about soil, and you guys all know how crazy I am about soil and composting. So that was a big interface. So I'm waiting for a book on that topic, because that's a hard one to introduce to students sometimes. But once you get them, sort of going towards that topic, they immediately see all the possibilities of life underfoot and that kind of thing. So, oh, and yes, we have a famous farmer here in Charleston named Jermaine Jenkins that started a Will Allen inspired community urban farm. And Chase just suggested that she would be a good person to write about. And I would endorse that, because I know her and she's amazing. She's really transformed her community through urban farming and combating a food desert here in North Charleston. So
I think we can never have enough of those stories.
No.
Gardening changes lives. We know that people who have access to gardens in prison and do garden work in prison are less likely to end up back in prison. I mean, it just changes lives. It's miraculous, really.
Jackie, I can't thank you enough for being here today, and I can't thank all of you enough. And as a token of our appreciation for you joining us during your summer, Jackie and I conspired with Ben and Philip Lee from Readers to Eaters to get some signed copies of some of Jacqueline's best work that I'm excited, or not best, but they're all great, but you know what I'm saying, but some of her books. And so we did a behind the scenes drawing. Megan helped me with that. So I'm gonna just give me a hot second here to get our door prize list up. That's what I've been feverishly working on behind the scenes here. Share my screen. Okay, so if you're a winner, you will have to look for an email from us to send us your address. So we can ship you some amazing door prizes. We also have sort of a combo with some honey from the Bee Cause Project and maybe some other goodies, since I happen to know the educator over there. So congratulations. Here's the winners. I'm not going to read them all out, but I also want to just encourage everyone to think about attending our next one that Jackie's already plugged for us. Our next summer author series will be with Catherine Pryor, who wrote Sylvia Spinach and Zora's Zucchinis and Bees, and a lot of other great books. And she's going to speak to us on July 14th, the same time frame, because we are still working across all the time zones again. And she will present on growing food literacy, connecting kids, books, and gardens. So I'm really excited. And we're also going to be joined on that day with Anderson Cook, who is with the South Carolina State Library. And she's going to talk about an awesome food literacy based program that's run out of the South Carolina State Library. So we're really excited. And then our final program of the summer will be August 10th, when we'll have Rick Schwan, who wrote Our School Garden. And so we have lots of partners, and Tracy Miskelly from South Carolina Ag in the Classroom will join us for that last one. She just had a baby yesterday, so if you know her, you can send her a congratulations message, her second. So we're very excited for her and her family. And we're just really grateful for all of you. And Jackie, that was amazing. I am so glad that you were able to join us today and to share how you dig for stories in such a remarkable way.
Thank you for having me, Amy. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. We got lots of nice comments. And if anybody has any additional questions or wants to hang on the line, I'm Emily. I know Ben and Jackie and I are here until a few more minutes if you would like us. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy your summer. Hopefully we'll see you in July. Happy 4th of July.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jacqueline, I almost made my husband come in here. He actually gifted me Snowflake Bentley years and years and years ago. And I almost was like, get in here. She's talking about it. It's just such a touching story. And you tell it so beautifully.
Well, I loved that story. I only write about things I care about.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to tell the story of Wilson Bentley and Will Allen and Alice Waters, Roy Choi. I just love the idea that kids will have them as neighbors now. No matter where they live, Snowflake Bentley can be their neighbor. LA, Roy Choi can be their neighbor. And
Right.
I think we can't expand children's worlds enough. They need to know a lot of neighbors.
And you have to have someone that's passionate about it to make them feel as excited as they feel about a pop star. You know, like all these people that are part of this community of educators and, you know, people that speak about this and learn about it, like our passion for it will help them understand that to people like us, they're as important as pop stars. And without that, you know, you're not going to get that. And that's why educators are just so important in all their different facets.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the concept that kids can become famous for something new, you know, that they don't have to emulate someone else's fame. I mean, that's like kind of a concept that, you know, maybe we haven't hit on as often, you know, and even if they never become famous, at least they'll be doing something remarkable and different that's unique to them, like photographing snowflakes 5,000 times or, you know, breeding plants or whatever it ends up being in their life. So
it looks like Megan raised her hand.
Megan, what? Who did?
Megan Wolf raised her hand. She would like to ask a question.
Megan, we still can't hear you for some reason. You're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay, type it.
Gonna type it. Technology, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes
I literally live in fear.
Jacqueline, I just wanted to say how calming and easy it was to listen to you tell your stories. I mean, it came through how passionate you are just by your voice. And it was amazing. So thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate the invitation. I kind of feel like I've traveled to Charleston and I'm sitting in my chair.
Well, it's probably a lot harder. Megan, there's nothing you need to do. You'll just get an email from Megan Shearer, who is our program assistant, and she'll ask you for your address if we don't already have it. We probably already have it, but if we don't, we'll just need a mailing address. Same, Elijah, I noticed your name was on that list too. And these are signed copies of Jacqueline's books. I know. I got a copy of Begin with a B that she signed, and Emily asked to borrow it, and I was like, back to me.
I had it like on the guest bed back here. The cat comes in here. I'm like, don't you touch that book. Don't get anywhere near that book.
So
you get in trouble.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And we also, I'll have a couple of like grand prize winners that'll get a couple of extra goodies and then a lot of copies going out. So we're excited about being able to share that. We appreciate Jackie signing those for us.
It was my pleasure. I just love that Emily's working with honeybees and you have the Food in Schools program and Readers to Eaters. I mean, we're all in the same community, approaching the same issues from a different spot. And I think there's a synergy there, which has got to be good for everyone.
No one says no. That's the other really beautiful thing. Like in the time of working with bees, I've asked for a lot of things. I've asked people to, sponsor something. I've asked people to host us. Like I've asked for a lot of things. And at first I was like, I can't believe I'm asking for this, but no one has said no. And during this delivery that we did for this library grant, it was nothing but thank you. I mean, like librarians meeting us in the hallway, jumping up and down with men helping us unload these boxes. And they're like, what can we do? How can we help? I mean, it makes you feel like Santa Claus, like you're showing up with all these like treats and everyone's so pleased. And then to get to see the feedback in like social media where they're tagging us and showing like what they've done with it. It's just really amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're very fortunate to be able to do such fun jobs and to connect so many things. Polly, thank you for coming today. Polly is also, she's a master gardener and a retired teacher. And she also has a famous sister because her sister was one of my master gardeners. So I got to hear them in stereo whenever we were in the office together. So it's such a fun, we're a small state and we all are related in some way, I think. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm going to close the meeting out now and I'll get this recording up to campus where they will put it on YouTube and then we can share it far and wide to those who couldn't join us today. And Jackie, again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to hear your.
Thank you, Amy. This was totally wonderful. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ben, thank you.
Yep.
And Emily, thank you. Megan,
Y'all have a good afternoon.
We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.